Hi, everyone. This is Brandon Mavlios here, Product Marketing Director at Datasite. I have today with me Jason Weisbaum from Houlihan Lokey. And today we're going to continue our series on thriving in investment banking. So first off, Jason, thank you very much for joining us today.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to be here and happy to be part of the conversation.
Cool. So first off, just to begin, can you give a bit about your background and just your current day-to-day at Houlihan?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am a member of Houlihan Lokey's business services coverage team out of our New York office. Been with the firm and team for about 5.5 years now. Spent my whole career there, so joined out of undergrad. When I joined, the team was a lot different than it is today. It was much smaller. It was a newer group and practice at Houlihan. It was a bit of an afterthought. And it's really transformed and morphed in amazing ways since then to become one of the larger and more successful groups at Houlihan, in my opinion. And so it's been really fun to be a part of that transition, not just personally, going from an analyst to an associate and tackling those new responsibilities, but just kind of seeing the transition of the group and really kind of going from an underdog to more of a kind of powerhouse, I think, in the business services arena, and really seeing, us tackle that successfully. And then in terms of my day to day, I think Houlihan, not just business services, but Houlihan mostly focuses on sell side M&A. That's kind of our bread and butter. We do some buy side M&A, capital markets deals, restructurings, but I would say probably 80% of my time is spent on that kind of sell side M&A with a focus more so on private companies, although we are making a push more so into working with public companies. And so my day to day involves really kind of managing a lot of the sale process, whether that is working on marketing materials and the financial model and working with my junior staff to progress those work streams. Or it involves a lot of client interaction as well. So I spend a lot of my time on the phone with the C-suite, the CEOs and CFOs of my clients, answering their questions, helping them understand what we need to do, and making sure things are generally progressing. And so, it's one of my favorite aspects of the job is just that interaction, but it's really kind of being that manager of the day-to-day per se, to make sure we are hitting our deadlines and everyone's on the same page. And really kind of just being that go-between between both the senior folks of my client and my team, as well as kind of the junior staff to make sure everyone is functioning properly.
Very cool. So you mentioned a few things that you do day to day, interacting with clients, managing the marketing materials and whatnot, the sell side process. Is there anything else in particular you like most about either the role or working with business services clients, right, as a kind of a sector that you deal with?
Yeah, so I think two parts to that question. The first one, my favorite aspect of the job, I think, is certainly the client interaction and just the fact that I get to interact directly multiple times on a daily basis with extremely smart folks who are the founders, the CEOs, the CFOs, and other senior positions of my clients and have done unbelievable things throughout their career building businesses. And me, as a 27-year-old getting to kind of be the voice of Houlihan in some senses, when it comes to helping them manage the sale process or whatever transaction we're working on is an unbelievably cool aspect of the job, that sometimes I think gets lost in all the shuffle of everything else going on. But there's not a lot of other careers out there where you get that sort of interaction so early on in your career. And I think it's the type of thing that's just going to pay so many dividends down the line in my career or anyone else's career, just developing those skills and getting to pick the brains of some of the smartest people out there. And I wouldn't, I'm an associate, but I would say that applies really to the analyst level at Houlihan and probably a lot of other banks as well, especially in the middle market where we run lean deal teams. It's just natural that everyone's going to get some client interaction and get learn from and work with a lot of really smart and interesting people out there. So that's definitely one of my favorite aspects. And then as it applies to the business services sector, I love the fact that it's kind of at the crossroads of a lot of really positive tailwinds going on just in the global economy right now. Most of our clients look for niche solutions, that really take advantage of technology and can find a more efficient and cheaper way to do a lot of the functions any company needs to do to run their day-to-day business. So every company out there, whether it's a service or a product, needs to really focus on what their core business, what they're doing, to make money and be successful. But there's so many other things out there that they need to do to keep the wheels turning, whether it's everything from transportation of their products to payroll for their clients to managing IT services to marketing, everything across the board like that. And the companies we work with really have found outsourced solutions that work more efficient than these people doing it in-house. And with the globalization of the economy and all these companies really trying to expand, and do so many different things, the businesses we work with are really kind of at the epicenter of that and really are going to benefit.
Yeah, and it makes a lot of sense just with all the change happen. You mentioned globalization, you mentioned digital transformation, marketing transformation, whatever it may be. Certainly an exciting place to kind of dive into kind of in your career, right? Especially kind of at the junior level, and your role starts to evolve. It'll certainly be something that's going to continue to grow. So yeah, I'm sure a lot of folks out there are quite jealous to be that you're in a sector with so much change and transformation.
Yeah, and I think that's an interesting thing because 5-10 years from now, when I'm more of a senior position and related to developing and getting hired by clients, it could look totally different. I'm sure businesses in this sector, the term business services didn't even exist 10 years ago. So I'm excited to see where we'll go from here for sure.
For sure. So in terms of kind of challenges of your role, I know, you mentioned kind of a lot of what you do day to day already, but what are some of the tougher parts and kind of how do you work through them?
Yeah, I think, you probably hear this from a lot of people, but one of the most difficult is just prioritization, management, organization, right? There is so much that goes into just one deal that is hard to appreciate from the outside, especially when you're working at a middle market bank when we run leaner deal teams and the clients, while very smart, are probably less sophisticated on how an M&A transaction works. Managing that, times 3 or 4-fold on the amount of projects you're working on really requires someone who has strong skills in those areas and can understand how to manage your various clients, how to manage the various people within your own organization, and understanding what needs to get done first, what can come later, and just, balancing all those various aspects, I think, is one of the most difficult things on a day-to-day basis, because you're always going to be busy. There's always going to be transactions. And so, it's a unique challenge every single day, I would say. And then the other thing, I think is a longer term, more interesting challenge. And it really goes back to, again, how, the global economy and the access to information now, I think 10, 15 years ago, senior folks could find clients that other banks weren't talking to or didn't even know existed. Now there's so many resources out there and so many different ways to track companies that it's almost hard to find unique ideas anymore, especially in the private arena. And so how do you develop long-term client relationships and how do you benefit from those, knowing that others out there are frankly talking to them as well? And what different value add can you bring to the table as their advisor? Because, otherwise we're all a dime a dozen and it just becomes who can do the best, the most services for the cheapest fee. And I know at Houlihan, that's not our mentality and probably not other banks as well. And so, long term, just thinking through, again, creative solutions that we can bring to our clients, whether it's on the day to day or broadly launching new services at a bank, is an interesting challenge, not just for me, but, for all banks out there thinking long term.
Gotcha. Cool. Well, just to maybe a little bit to the personal side, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Obviously, with any role in investment banking, with a desk like yours that is very busy all the time and obviously gets a lot of great deal flow, there is that obviously topic of work-life balance. How do you kind of manage your own time and how do you kind of, stay fresh, right? And so, do you have any sort of advice that you can give other junior bankers that helped you in terms of kind of manage work-life balance and how you continue to manage work-life balance in your current life?
Yeah, it's a good question, right? The work-life balance in investment banking is kind of the holy grail, that, I don't think will ever be perfectly solved. But, I think I've, approached it in a way that I think is helpful, and I've tried to, let others know as well. And, it's all about, preparation and being flexible. And I think what's important is understanding that not just in this job, but all jobs out there anymore, it's not a 9 to 5 job anymore. And you can shift things around to make sure that your priorities can be met. So for example, if I want to go out to dinner on a Saturday night, but I know we have something due Monday, I'm going to wake up early Saturday morning to make sure I can get done what I need to get done. And if that means maybe I don't go out Friday night so I can wake up early and get the start to the day, those are the types of things that you need to do. Or for example, if I have a doctor's appointment or dentist appointment I need to go to on a Wednesday morning, maybe I wake up a little earlier, handle a couple emails, and then maybe I extend a little later into the evening. So it's all about the give and take and making sure that, you find ways to handle what you need to, at work around your personal schedule. And there will always be situations where, that's not going to be the case. But for me, I found it's critical to keep a good work-life balance, to keep your mind fresh and to keep your body fresh and, to approach each day, with vigor. And I think, for me at least, one of the things that's really helpful is getting in a good workout, taking my mind off of work every day. And so, I think, one suggestion I've always given to analysts is, I know it's hard, but waking up a little earlier and 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour in the morning, trying to get in a workout, before the emails start coming in, get your mind off of everything that's going on in the office is something that's always been really helpful for me and just kind of, getting my mind right going into each day. And then, again, just on the weekends, making time for yourself, but just understanding you have to be flexible and, kind of age-old adages of what's considered personal time. And sometimes you give a little of what you consider personal time, on a different aspect of the weekend or in the evening to make time so you can do what you need to on the schedule that needs to happen.
For sure. That time management aspect you're bringing up is just so important. And kind of staying on that same thread of just kind of personal development and personal kind of management, thinking about like career, and learning and development, how do you continuously learn and how do you continuously build your skills? And knowing you've already been in investment banking for some time now, how do you stay fresh and kind of find new things to develop on?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think, a couple responses and aspects to that. So the first one I would say is, it's going to sound silly, but just reading, everything that comes across your way. There are so many emails and different work streams that go on in this job. And I know, especially when I was an analyst, your time is precious and there's so much to do that if you see an email that doesn't apply to you or not something you need to immediately do, you just file it away and don't think about it. And I'm not saying don't do that, but what I think you should do is when you have a little free time, go back to those emails that you skipped over and read them and try and understand what's going on. Because one day that email is going to apply to you and you're going to need to understand how to handle it or what aspect of the deal it's applying to that may not be front and center right now, but maybe in a year or two will be. And so again, just making time when you have a little downtime to go back and read whether it's an email or whether it's a document like a purchase agreement, or it's a letter of intent. Just again, reading through and then trying to make sure you understand it because one day you will need to, or asking questions. I know it's really silly, the last point about asking questions, but really don't be afraid to ask. The people above you are going to be your best resources. This is the type of job where you can't really learn it in a textbook. You have to learn it on the job. And the best way to do that is just asking questions. And so don't be afraid to go to your superiors and be respectful of their time and try and understand if they have time to answer questions, but make sure that you are learning from them and picking their brain and having them explain to you why what you're doing is important to the overall, deal and outcome you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, and I think that the first point you brought up is actually quite unique. I haven't heard that one before, but it makes a lot of sense, right? It's like, you tend to ignore things that are not immediately actionable.
Yep.
So you get done what you need to get done, but then in the end of the day, you're kind of expected to be following what is happening so that you could continue to develop, right? So I think that's a really good piece of advice. So thanks for that.
Yeah.
And, I think, the last question we have today that I just wanted to kind of pick your brain on was around this current environment right now, right? So work from home, everyone's doing things remotely. We know, in classes last year were all kind of different and unique and virtual. A lot of them were, at least. But, in terms of yourself and kind of what you've been doing this year and how you have had to change, your own personal work habits, what are you going to take away from this year and kind of carry into next, when hopefully things go back to the new normal? Any sort of lessons or takeaways?
Yeah, I think one takeaway, for sure is how much I miss just being around my coworkers and the camaraderie in this job. You spend so much time with these people in the office. There's no way around that in this job. And you gotta like your coworkers, but you almost don't realize how much you like them until you're not around them all the time. And so, whether it's, the late nights, just hanging out together or eating lunch together in an office or grabbing a couple drinks after work one day, you really miss that camaraderie. And we stay in touch for sure in this remote environment, but there's nothing, you can't replace that in-office environment and just getting to really collaborate together and get through the highs and lows together. So I definitely miss that and appreciate that. I think one takeaway I've learned from this is, working in the business services group that talked about the globalization of the economy, but how remote and fluid things can really be. And I think Houlihan, really tackled it very well. We're set up pretty well to work in a remote environment before this, just given the amount of travel we have to do. But just pivoting towards things like more Zoom calls and more catch-up calls, because you take for granted, being able to stand up and stick your head out of your office and call over to your analyst to discuss something. And so, we said, how are we going to do these types of things? And we realized, hey, these are what cell phones and laptops are for. And so, a year from now, if an analyst wants to take off a Friday because they want to go to the beach for the weekend, or if they have their sister's college graduation, they want to, leave Friday morning, Thursday night. Before we would say, that it's going to be tough for you to do the job Friday if you're remote. But now there's no excuses, or, reasons, I would say that they can't do that. And so I think this will actually help a lot of that work-life balance, in getting, some senior folks whose minds may have, had a picture of what needed to be versus what can be now, is really, going to hopefully change for the better. And so I look forward to that as well, for sure.
Excellent. It's good to hear. Well, Jason, again, thank you so much for taking the time today. It was a pleasure, speaking with you. I'm sure the audience got a lot of great advice out of the conversation. So, once again, very much appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me. And, hopefully I pass along a few helpful tidbits.